as we said, the last 200 years, last 100 years, how life has changed for humanity on this planet. You have your technology that dramatically changed human existence. People get upset about this technology. You're the user. If you're too far into the past or even thinking about the future, you're not focused on this present moment.
Arguably the most important relationship that we have is to be with ourselves first.
I had the gift of a commitment I made to God. Mm-hmm. When you do that, you just push through.
I'd like to welcome back to the show returning champion, Sheila Gillette. How you doing, Sheila?
I'm doing great, Alex. It's good to be here with you.
Thank you so much for coming down to Next Level Soul Studios. We've been talking about this for a while now, and I'm so glad you finally got here and to meet you in person, meet your lovely husband, Marcus, as well. It's amazing. So thank you again for making the trip.
Oh, thanks for the invitation. It's really fun to be with you in person.
Yes.
We've done Zoom, but this is better.
Yes, it is. And I'm looking forward to meeting Theo in person later in our conversation. That's going to be fun. My favorite story, and I'll say it again because if they haven't heard, when you and I think it was our second or first conversation years ago. You've been on the show 4 times, 5 times at this point. And there was an internet issue and it was in the middle of channeling and Theo was there and I'm like, "Are you there? Are you there?" Theo's like, yes. Like it was just such a beautiful organic moment, authentic moment.
Yeah.
When I logged back in, I go, "So Theo, not so much with the tech support?"
I remember that. I think that was the first time, and we were having solar put on the house,
right?
And they,
knocked something out. Or something.
They knocked out the internet, and it was crazy.
And he was like, "Hello." It was just such a beautiful, authentic moment in that. I love telling that story. So they are all powerful on the other side, but not with the tech support. Now we know.
Nope. Well, when years ago when I lived in Santa Fe in my office, I had my office where I met with clients, and then we had an operational office where the computers were and they did accounting, and then I had a reception area. Well, we had a fellow in that was getting an accounting system up, and Theo had... whenever they would come in, they'd mess with the electrical because the energy was so high.
Yeah.
And it wiped out his entire system that he was installing. He thought he did it. But I'd had that experience several times that the computers would just go down. Now, this was in the 80s, so, things have changed hugely.
So for everybody who doesn't know what you do, can you give a quick Reader's Digest version of what you do and how long you've been doing it?
Yeah, Theo's always come in on the left side, but in the beginning I was laying down like Edgar Cayce. And this was in 1969. 1970, actually.
So everybody was really into channeling. It was very accepted. Nobody questioned you whatsoever.
No, this isn't something I went into social situations and said, "Guess what I can do?"
You didn't have the T-shirt? "Hi, I channel Theo"?
No. But I started then and started working with people. I said, "How are they going to find me?" "We're sending them," they said. And so I was laying down. And then I was working in New York with clients, and I got bronchitis. So laying down and coughing. So my assistant said, "Theo, what can we do for Sheila?" And they said, "Tell her to sit up." I was like, who knew you could do that, right? So then I was sitting up, eyes closed. For years, I did sessions like that, groups. And then Marcus and I were traveling to do a seminar in Asheville.
Asheville, North Carolina.
And they opened my eyes. And then 2 weeks later, we were in St. Louis at a retreat center, and they stood me up. Marcus was like, what's going on here? And and then I was standing so still, and they were speaking, that my feet went to sleep. And I told Marcus afterwards, I said, I'm not going to be able to do this. This has been an evolution of them really revving up my cells and taking over my entire body, because before it was just my upper body, my throat, and be able to speak. And then they just started moving me around in a room, walking. But so there has been an evolution. Now, I've been doing this since 1970.
So that's, if my math is correct, 55 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wasn't even born yet. Just barely wasn't born yet.
Just barely?
Just about 74. So, yeah, that's...
Well, this all happened to me after my near-death experience in 1969, which was the birth of my youngest daughter.
Right, Rich. We've spoken about that before. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So who is Theo, for people who don't know?
Theo is our 12 archangels that are collectively known by Theo. When they first came in, they said, we will be known as Theo. We will not identify collectively, and they never have. They've never said who the group is. I have my suspicions, but...
Michael, Gabriel, Metatron, a couple of them.
But they say there's 24 archangels.
Total?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that they are 12 of the 24, but that sometimes the others pop in and out when they
want to.
Well, or when it's their subject that somebody's asking about.
What I find fascinating about Theo is his energy when he comes into the room is very and again, my perspective is very unique. It is a very archangel energy. I've had Archangel Michael show up. I've had Archangel Gabriel and Metatron show up. Their energy when they come in through a channel is the energy that I feel with Theo, which is this very authoritative yet loving energy. Like, not so much with the cracking of the jokes, but occasionally they'll throw a zinger in.
Yeah. It's real subtle. I've always thought they were really funny, but people are so serious. You know, when you talk to archangels, but they told us not long ago that they're working on their humor. So this year they're getting funny.
Well, I mean, Robin Williams is on the other side. I think they could talk to him a little bit. You know, there's a couple funny people over there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
So Sheila, we'll bring in Theo in a little while, but I wanted to ask you, my first question to you is, I think a lot of people watching have a problem or they have an issue with finding their purpose. I think people who are lost in life, I was at one point, I think everybody finds themselves at one point or another in their life feeling a little bit like at sea without guiding or an engine or something to guide them along the way. You're kind of just floating around, lost. What advice do you have for people who are kind of lost? They have not found their purpose yet. What would you advise about finding their purpose, or how to even deal with the place they're at right now?
Well, what Theo says, our purpose is life itself, that we got to be in these bodies. What people are looking for is passion, how to express their life energy in a direction that is significant. We all come here wanting to be significant. As little kids, we know we're great, until somebody tells us we're not.
And we're like, what?
Yeah. But the thing is when we get lost, it's because we're afraid to step out on that one thing. We may have, and we've known as a kid, oftentimes we'll know. And then, we get off track because we go to school and we're told you should do this to make money and, go to college, or a parent wants you to follow in their steps, and however it occurs. So Theo has given us a process called the soul integration process, which allows us to have that inward self-discovery of what is our passion, because we know under the I don't know is the knowing, but we're afraid to say, I can do this, because maybe we've been told we can't, or life situations and circumstances have knocked us down, and we create a belief that we're not good enough, we're not worthy of that accomplishment. So it's a process of self-revelation that happens to find that purpose. It's not external.
Oh, no.
It's internal.
So why do you believe that people are so afraid of going out there? Is it that primal thing of being kicked out of the tribe, and then if you're kicked out of the community or the group, then you die essentially because you'll be left out there for the wild animals?
Survival.
Yeah. So is that the thing?
Oh, absolutely. Fear of abandonment, shame are the two leading causes of holding people back, because they adopt beliefs about themselves that are untrue out of those situations, circumstances, and conditions that are challenging. And some of them are pretty severe, as I'm sure you've heard, and I've heard as well. But those things are just our history. They don't need to define us. And that history won't change, but our perception of it can. We can change those beliefs because they've made us the person we are today, have given us many gifts and blessings and strengths. Our soul draws to us perfectly those opportunities of that kind of growth. But we have to be willing to do the inner work and be willing to change the belief system. Some people just want to stay stuck in the victimized story that they carry, because even if it's negative attention, it's attention. And it makes one feel seen. Because we all want to be seen and heard. But who would you be without it?
The thing that I find interesting what you just said is that you can change your relationship with your past.
Yes.
Because the event is irrelevant. It's what it is, it is. If something negative happened to you, something positive happened to you, whatever that was that helped you become who you are, it is something that you have a relationship with. So if you had a very negative situation, a traumatic situation that might have happened to you, pick your poison, if you will.
Right.
How you look at that. Some people will look at a traumatic event going, my whole life has been over because of this thing and that this person did to me, or what that situation did to me, or blah, 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 blah. Or that same trauma with somebody else will go, I'm so thankful for that thing that happened to me. It was very painful, but I grew and I did this. That shift in perception changes a person's life.
Yep. As Theo would say, it changes the trajectory of your life forever. If you can make those changes, and that's why they work with the soul integrational process that they brought forward 5 decades ago. I've been a student of that in my life, as many of our clients have. And it truly does change you to go in the direction of what we call purpose or passion, and knowing we are the one to do that. They'll tell us, it would be a really boring world to live in if we had one piece of music, or if we had one book to read, or one painting to look at, or sculpture, or whatever it is that is our genius, as many might say. Because each of us bring our own particular energy into that passionate expression of our creativity. And even if somebody's done something similarly, not everybody will get whatever it is from that you may intend, because they're not on that same frequency. But if you did it passionately in your voice, then those people who wouldn't be receiving it from another would. So it's important that we all express that in whatever we're doing. And Theo says we're all channels. We're all channeling that creative energy individually, and we're like a big orchestra with lots of instruments, and each of us is an instrument and have notes to play.
Oh, that's beautiful.
In the composition of the music. It wouldn't be the same without it.
But the false belief is that we are not the music. We are not the instrument. That we don't have the capability of even doing that. That we need to give our power to someone else to tell us what to do, or to tell us how to go, or follow this dream, or do that job, or this thing, that. But I found that throughout my life, working in the entertainment industry, when I've met people, artists at a very high level, they are almost fearless. They all have issues, some more than others, but they were brave enough to take the step to put themselves out there, to express themselves, whether it be writers, whether it be directors, whether it be painters, whether it be musicians. They took that. They were brave enough, and that's when the explosion in their careers happen, and so on and so forth. And then I've also met people who do the same thing and don't have explosions in their career, and that's okay. But they're happy. I've met some of the happiest people I've met are musicians that play at pubs on the weekend. And they're just like, I'm happy to just be able to play and get paid to play. Those kind of people. Yeah, we all think the big fame and all that stuff is really important, but I'm here to tell you it's not what it's all cracked up to be.
Well, I know that to be true, but anybody, I know in my own career, it looks one way on the outside.
Oh, yeah. the Instagram, if you will.
Yeah, but to get to this point, there were challenges.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like you brought up initially, when I began doing this work, we didn't talk about this openly.
Oh, no.
There were people interested, but they never talked about it to anybody because they could have lost their jobs.
Reputation, sure.
Ostracized from their communities, thrown out of places. I mean, there's still a little bit of that.
Oh, there's still plenty of
areas.
It. There's definitely, especially here in the States, there's still a couple areas, but it's not where it was 50 years ago.
Oh, my gosh, no.
This couldn't have happened.
No, this couldn't have happened.
No way.
When I came out with my first book, The Fifth Dimension, Channels to a New Reality, I was on several interview shows where there was huge pushback and judgment about what I did. Huge.
Actually, in the interview.
Oh, yeah.
People aggressive. It would be a combative interview.
Yeah. Wasn't fun.
I'm sure, so you're a charlatan, really.
Yeah,
Sheila.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of stuff. It's fascinating. I've always told people, I'm like, look, I know a lot of channelers. I know a lot of psychic mediums. There's easier hustles in the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot easier hustles in the world. I mean, a lot easier. It's one thing to be a psychic at a carnival or traveling circus or something like that. That's a little bit, you could be a little bit more incognito. But you're out there. You've got websites. You've got books. You're putting yourself out there for ridicule, for these kind of attacks. And you've been doing this for 50-some years now.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine the armor that you've been able to build up, where you could just. It doesn't even bother. Does it bother you still?
Well, not now, but it did. Of course.
Because you're human.
Of course,
yeah. You're human, yeah.
And I was concerned about my children being judged, especially when it got so public.
Yeah. Especially when they're growing up, too.
Yeah.
Those young years are rough. They're adults, they can deal with it a bit better.
Yeah.
High school, middle school, rough.
Yeah. But I have a funny story. When my older two children were in high school, and we lived in a small town in Colorado, and the kids would bring their friends in and out, and I had an office at home. And a woman that I met's son went to school with my son, and they were pretty good friends, and he'd been in our house, and And so she had made an appointment, a private session appointment with me, and she was telling her family at dinner she was going to come have a session with Theo. And Kib, her son, said, "Oh, I know Theo."
And she said, all the time.
"What?" Because
he'd been over.
He'd been at the house, and, they just
ask questions,
accepted it.
Well, when they're kids, they're just like, "Oh, okay, cool. That's the way the world works. Fine."
And my youngest daughter, when she was little, thought everybody's mother was a channeler till she got in school, and they weren't.
Right.
But on the flip side, when they got into college, and because I worked with so many scientists and stuff, they come home with questions, and I'd say, "Well, let's call Dr. So-and-so," because I had worked with them. And so they got some pretty good grades on papers they wrote.
I have a similar Rolodex, if you will, of people that I can call scientists. And, that I have on the phone. Like, "Hey, do you need to talk about somebody in NASA? Hold on." Yeah. What's your question? Kind of like that. Yeah. So it's helpful.
So they like that part of it.
It is pretty fascinating. One thing you said earlier about finding your purpose, and just want to dig into it just a little bit deeper. When you said that finding your purpose, finding your mission, if you will, in life, is within, how can people access that? How can we cut through all the programming that we have gotten since we were born, from society, from our religions, from our community, from the world, from our country, and so on, that has kind of built a personality that we have, and our belief systems are based upon our programming. That's why I find it so fascinating when people get so revved up about their belief system. They're like, "I'm the only way. This is the only thing that could be what it is." And I'm like, but there's a billion other people who don't believe that, literally, And I'm like, so are they all damned? Are they all poor, bad luck of the draw? Like that kind of stuff. So how can people cut through all of that within themselves to really find what they're looking for and their mission in life?
The things they're interested in and passionate about. What do you read? What do you listen to? What gets you lit up on the inside? Those are the things you look at.
But Sheila, you can't make a living being a podcaster. You can't make a living being a musician. You can't make a living as a writer. For God's sakes, ChatGPT is writing now forever, everybody. Why? No one can make a living doing that. These are the stories that we tell ourselves.
And we don't tell ourselves, we're told.
Correct.
And then we agree with it.
And then we reinforce it again and again. I mean, I was watching a documentary series the other day on Walt Disney. My God. The stuff that Walt did. He was insane. Insane. And we're going to make cartoons. We're going to make sound cartoons. We're going to, before anybody else, we're going to open up this theme park. What's a theme park? Well, you will figure it out. Like, all this kind of stuff. And it just kept pushing the thing, pushing. And all of these great businessmen and people who are pioneers in their spaces, they all challenged what the community, what the world said about what could be possible. And then we all believed it.
I remember Henry Ford's story where he went to the engineers and he wanted an 8-cylinder engine. And they said, "Oh, you can't do that, blah, blah, for whatever." And he said, "Oh, yes, we can. I've seen it. And they, no. And they said, "You can't." And he said, "Yes, I've seen it." They said, "Well, you don't know because you're not an engineer." And he said, "Good, because I'd be thinking like you." And that's what innovative people do. And keep pushing, I had the gift of a commitment I made to God. When you do that, you just push through. Because there were times that were challenging, that I could have just said, thrown up my hands and going, "I'm done with this." But I didn't, I'd think it for a moment and then I go, okay.
Did you ever get close in those early days? Because I imagine those early years must have been very difficult.
I'm going to say yes and no, because I may have been there at a moment of burnout and being tired.
Yeah.
and feeling the judgment of others and just going, this is, why? I'm not liking this.
Why am I doing this? Right?
Yeah. But then I get a phone call from somebody. It's like the angels were going, you call now. Get on her up.
She needs a little backup.
Yeah. And I would get a phone call where somebody was sharing with me what Theo had told them had changed their lives so significantly that I hang up the phone and I'm like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going again, because to have that kind of impact with somebody, and I know you feel this, it's just an amazing experience to know you've touched somebody's life in such a way.
There were so many times I wanted to quit. Not this, but filmmaking. I mean, I've been filmmaking for 30 years. And it's arguably one of the most difficult professions to get into, as far as to be a working, successful, not super famous, not super rich, just making a living in the industry is as bad as the music industry or a writer, or a painter or something like that. It's extremely difficult. And there's multiple times that I wanted to. It's like I can't anymore. I can't. Especially in my 20s and 30s, it kept running against these walls, which brings me to my next question. By the way, the answer for me was, what else are you going to do, dude? I just kept saying that to like anytime I would run into that, I'm like, all right, let's quit. Where are we going? And
I got some of that too.
Yeah, like, where are we going to go? What are you going to go? You going to Starbucks? Are you going to work there? Are you are you going to do a new career? Like, where are you going to go? What else can you do? This is what you were kind of constructed at the factory to do.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, I was lucky because I discovered my passion pretty early on. I worked at a video store back in the day, and that really kind of ignited my passion for movies. When I got out of high school, I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm like, I guess I'm going to be a filmmaker. And I went down that road. So I was early. I had a really clear idea of what I wanted to do. But throughout my 30 years, and it's documented in my first book, and I went through so many trials and tribulations in the industry, getting really close to the edge, like in the room with the big movie stars and the big producers, and everything always would drop. It would just get there and just drop. And it was the most frustrating thing. I would have rather, like, in many ways, I'm like, I would rather have never had that opportunity. Honestly, at that time, I would think, like, I don't want to be in the room with the big movie stars or the big producers promising me that they're going to get this movie made again and again and again. And I would yell out to God, I'm like, why would you give me this passion, this love, what you were saying to find, and not give me the opportunities to be successful by it? And then on top of it, to add salt to the wound, I would help other filmmakers finish their movies because I had the skill set and the talent and the experience to do so. And I would walk in, I would save their movies because they had no idea what they were doing. I'm like, they gave them $3 million. Why couldn't I have gotten $3 million to make my movie? Like, so it was just this constant beating for 30 years. And when I finally got to, when I finally started podcasting, I discovered, and now more than ever with Next Level Soul TV and everything, I go, I needed to be outside of the system. I couldn't have been allowed in it because I would have never left. It would have been too intoxicating. I needed to learn how to do everything outside the system because we're going to build a new system outside of what's existing now. So I'm like, okay, that's a hell of a long play there, God, but okay. But my question to you is, how can you tell somebody who is on their path of things that they're excited about, but yet are not making any headway in it? It's so frustrating. What do you say to someone like, what would you have told me if I would have came to you as in the 90s? I go, Theo, I can't get to this projects. I've again and again, there seems to be walls up there, but yet the universe keeps opening up doors. I feel like they're just abusing me for no reason. Why? What would you say to that version of me?
That version of you, Theo would have told you to keep going. And maybe given you some direction in where to go. Because of I would have shared my experience with you as an example of keeping going. the doors aren't always going to open. But we're always tested to our commitment. It's kind of like, are you sure? Are you really sure? And Theo says to us now, which I love this, and I adopt it in my life and have over the years, that there's a gravity pull, just like our gravity here on Earth, to pull us back from that achievement to the familiar. Well, what if, if I offend all the people around me, and the whole abandonment thing comes in. And if you go beyond, well, people just judge you and all that. So that gravity pull back to the familiar, maybe you're tired of it, you don't want it, you want to go further, but it just keeps pulling you back. So we have to have enough fuel in our will and our desire. Like I say, I hold on to the commitment I made to God in that intensive care. Really, I did. It's like, do you go against this? No. But that's the rocket fuel to push you beyond that gravity.
But you had that option. I didn't at the time. So I didn't have that North Star, which I made a commitment to God, so I have to keep going. I didn't have anything to hold on to. I was pretty much out there without a paddle, floating around. So I felt so lost, but yet being driven to keep going because it was an obsession.
That was your soul going, come on.
Yeah, that was the only thing. Yeah, it was like, keep it going. And I completely understand the whole concept of, are you sure? Do you think you're worthy of this? Do you really want this? I get that. But 25 years?
Well, I had about 40. So
really? So it was 40?
Well, if you think about really, actually, the 80s, it's when my first book came out, and things started moving in that direction. But the other thing, too, and you may relate to this, I had to be willing to be famous.
Yeah.
And
it's not fun.
Well, and to have my name out there, like I said, I was very protective of my family.
Yep.
And so I would bump up against those doors as well. Or those people who do you think you are? Gift from God, what,
all that kind of stuff.
And all that kind of stuff, where, it was just like bumping up against.
But it wasn't supposed to be easy,
that wall. But when I realized where my inner blockages were, doors started flying open.
How did you identify those blockages?
Did the integrative process that Theo taught me. About getting in touch with those parts of those, they call them the fragmented parts of our soul, that held beliefs that I didn't deserve it.
Is that shadow work? Would that be kind of considered shadow work?
It's similar to shadow work. It's similar to the shadow work or inner child work. It's similar to soul retrieval work, but it goes beyond that into the multidimensionality of who we are. It's soul work.
Which is what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Like I've said before, we spent the first 7 years being programmed and the rest of our life trying to deprogram what we'd learned in those first 7
not just this lifetime.
Right. And there's that. Well, that's something interesting that you bring that up. I wanted to ask you about ancestral karma. It's something that I've discovered recently, probably within the last year or so, about ancestral karma, which I didn't understand karma, at least to my understanding what karma is. I get that. But ancestral karma was something really interesting to me. That we carry, if we've been alcoholics in my family for generations. My great grandfather was an alcoholic. My grandfather, my father. It's up to me to break that thing. Let's say I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna break this, heal that for my line, and make sure it doesn't move forward. It could be violence. It could be 1,000 different ancestral things that happened to us. Can you talk a little bit about what you understand or what Theo has spoken about ancestral karma and how we can deal with it?
It really goes along with the soul integration that I'm talking about, because we get in touch with that. And as we heal, as we transform transform. I don't like heal. That we don't need to heal that. We need to transform it. Mm-hmm. And when we transform those beliefs that we have carried forward, it transforms everything that came before. It, not the events, not the circumstances, but the consciousness is evolving to a higher state of being, a more aware state from the third dimension. Now we're in the fifth. Mm-hmm. The fifth is greater clarity, becoming the souls we're meant to be, as Theo calls them, the magnificent souls that we are, having a human experience, and that we're breaking that mold, all of us, when we do the integrational process. So that's ancestral clearing. Just like physical, they're now saying that, we have these hereditary things in our genetics. Well, we change those too. Mm-hmm. When we do the integrational process, we can change our DNA. We don't have to be subject to that either.
Is that epigenetics?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so this is a time that, we talk about revelation. Well, that's the revealing of who we truly are in the fifth dimension. If we went into the physics of it, we're changing the timeline. Out of this old third dimensional reality where clocks and calendars and all of that came to fruition, but it doesn't define us in time. Mm-hmm. We're changing that into a new vector of time, which is greater clarity and different consciousness, different vibrational frequencies. So that being said, we have to change our minds. It's a must. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're talking about. That's why all of these terminologies have come out now. Ancestral karma, or psychology, or patterning, or whatever, however we want to speak about it. So we have come here in these bodies to participate in that. Theo calls us the way showers. You and I are way showers of a new way of being that's changing our world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, and it's to be changed.
It has to.
Even though it looks like it's not changing at all.
Well, it's going to get a little wonky.
Well, like Theo says, birthing can be a little messy.
Right.
We're birthing a new way of being.
Yeah, Well, and I forgot where I heard this. It must have been in another interview that I was doing. But if you were an alien and you showed up and you never seen anything about Earth, and you get taken to a hospital and you are watching a birth happen, the amount of pain and yelling and screaming and all the things that would happen with a natural birth, they think, oh my God, they're killing this. They're killing this being.
Person.
This being is being killed. If they can see what was going on, but underneath it, life was being born. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a great analogy for what's happening in our world right now.
It is.
Because looking at it, like, the whole place is burning, literally.
Screaming and yelling, yeah.
Screaming and yelling and burning and wars and all this kind of stuff. But underneath it, something new is being born. And it's coming out. But you need all of that to be able to bring that into this. And
a lot of it is coming to fruition, and we don't even hear about it.
Example.
A lot of really, really good stuff is going on.
So tell me, give us some good news.
Well, there's good news on the planet, new information in the health arena. Mm-hmm. Out of something devastating as COVID has come out a tremendous amount of new medical models, new way of research, new way of testing, all kinds of things that are going to bless us. It's like out of the space industry, look how we live today. Mm-hmm. If we hadn't had the space industry,
no Velcro,
no, or a lot of other stuff.
I'm
right?
using that as an example, but yeah, no Tang.
Pardon me.
No Tang.
Yeah.
You remember Tang, right?
Mm-hmm. Used to make a great spicy tea with tang and instant tea.
But no, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of good things happening. But again, if you're looking at mainstream media and news and stuff like that, it's horrible. Like, perfect example is what's happening in LA with the fires was devastating. It tore me up because I knew a lot of people there, and you have a lot of friends there still as well. And looking at the news, I just kind of kept like, the world's coming to an end. And don't get me wrong, there was a time that it literally looked like Armageddon. I mean, at night with the wind, it was a hurricane of fire, and it was pretty intense. But as the days went on, I kept noticing that they wouldn't let up on that. They kept replaying those images again and replaying it again. And I was looking at it, I was like, and my wife had a trip planned at that time to go to visit family. And I'm like, I think we need to cancel this. I mean, I don't even know if the air quality is good, anything like that. And when she got there, she's like, nothing. You would, if no one would have told you that the Palisades had been burned down and Malibu had been burned down, you wouldn't even know in the valley, really. It just there wasn't a lot of, like, where she was, at least, because LA is such a,
it's huge.
It's the largest city in the country. It's so big on its footprint that a whole section of it literally could have been burned down, and a whole other section would have known about it. But they were focusing so much on the negative and the negative and the negative that I was like, oh, look what they did there. I mean, I get it. I understand it. But there was a lot of good happening there too, as well. And a lot of places that weren't affected and things that were positive. So it was just a really interesting, that was like a recent example of that.
But isn't that true? That's what's been going on for years. And that's how people have continued to be upset.
Oh, yeah.
And depressed, and all of the psychological things that are going on with people right now, because that's what sells. That continual
negative
and devastation, and we're all going to die, and and it's sad. We should know about these things, but look, since we've had the internet, we've been at the front door of catastrophe.
Yeah.
Since then.
Since 96.
And it's good on one hand because we know what's going on in the world and we can help in the world. But then we know all the other negative stuff too. Well. And it's built on, like, repeatedly shown. So we need to step away and hold our own counsel on the inner, and not. And Marcus and I have done that. I mean, we got kind of obsessed with everything that was going on in the news, and we just said, no, we can't just keep taking this in, and we need not to be reactive in that way. And that's what integration too. How am I going to respond rather than react? But that emotional negativity, it feeds on itself.
Yeah, and of course, if you're on social media, that algorithm is going to create an echo chamber of just same thing, to the point where it's sometimes you believe something that's absolutely untrue.
Well, that's where all the conspiracies and all the untruths have gotten power.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many of them that are. I mean, it's insane. Some of the theories and some of the conspiracies out there, and the thing that doesn't help the situation is a lot of things that were conspiracy theories back in the 80s and 90s. We all figured after they released documents, like, oh no, it was really happening. So they're like, you see, the government was doing that and it was doing that. So that just feeds into it more and more and more, into more distrust. Do you see? I mean, there's so much distrust right now in institutions, in things that, like, if you say the word NASA, we've been growing. NASA's a pretty non-offensive, word. They're not controversial. Their job is to send people to the moon and back, or send people on
space.
Space. And people now are like, oh, they're from NASA. They're probably part of a government conspiracy or something. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. And then but all these institutions are being questioned in ways that institutions, as I was growing up, definitely as you were growing up, have never been questioned. The Vatican, for God's sakes, or or the pharmaceutical companies, or health, or the financial industry, or all these things are being questioned now.
Well, I think some of it is good.
Yeah.
A watchful eye. Critical thinking. I mean, what happened to critical thinking? Is this really true? I mean, some of this stuff that gets oxygen is like,
really?
Really? It's like, well, I said it on TV,
They said it on Facebook, so it must be real.
Yeah, or TikTok or any of these platforms. And it's being used. That's why we have to have critical thinking.
Well, common sense is not so common.
Yeah.
Common sense, not so common anymore. Things that my generation grew up with, your generation grew up with. It was just common sense. Like, you don't do that. You don't say that. You don't, and now it's like there's nothing that's not on the table for a discussion anymore. Is the earth round? Well, no, I don't know. It could be flat. Like, really? Like, really? By the way, we'll get comments about that if I said that out loud, because you're like, oh, of course it's a flat earth. Don't you understand? I'm like, but there's, I mean, really, like, there's so much of that now. There's there's a reason why you feel like the world is coming apart at the seams right now. I wanted to ask you, and I'll ask Theo later, but, this year started off with a bang, literally. I mean, we're only 3 weeks into January, and my God, it has been intense so far. From my understanding, and I think you've spoken about this before, that these next 5 years, 10 years are going to be a bit rocky. And I've been saying this on the show, and I cover it a bunch on the show because I don't do it for the sake of fear, but I want people to understand that, like, it's okay. The things that are going on around you is part of the birthing process, and not to be afraid of it. And I'm bringing it out the light on it because a light needs to be shined on it. Yeah. So if not, fear runs rampant throughout this whole thing. So I'm constantly asking these questions about that. So I'd love to hear what you think this year is going to be like, because so many people are terrified already.
Oh, I'm really positive.
Fantastic. Tell me.
Theo's been talking about this for 5 decades. This time that we're in, about the shifting consciousness, and it's coming from inside of us.
Right. It's not an outside
event. It's an inside out, not an outside in. And when we realize that we have some authority here, we're the authors of this. We're creative. We're creators. We can create the life we want to live. And when people let others block them from being who they should be, Theo says that's the only sin there is. Blocking someone's spiritual growth. And everything's spiritual. Everything is. Everything we do is, because we're spiritual beings having this human experience. I'm not saying religious, I'm saying spiritual.
Agreed.
And so there's authority in that. The ability to use that significant individualistic being that we are here to be significant, however that's addressed, like the musician that plays on the weekend at the local restaurant, being happy doing that, not needing to have a huge record contract or be on television, but they're content in bringing their beautiful soul essence to what they're doing. And that's what we all need to do.
But do you believe, I think what's happening right now is that the technology of the internet and the technology of technology in general has given the power of everybody to have their own TV show, to have their own books published, to have their own music played, where before there was gatekeepers for all of that. And now they're not, to the point where, our show gets better ratings than a lot of shows on cable, which is insane to me, or things like that. Or you hear some of the bigger podcasts who get 10 or 11 million people. That blows away anything on television. You know what I mean? It's pretty remarkable. And we all have the power to do that now. So we all can express ourselves. It doesn't, we all don't have to be the big rock star, but can you make a living doing what you love? You don't have to be rich, but can you make a living doing it? And even if it takes you a while to make a living with it. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I started podcasting, first of all, not the place to go get rich, that's for sure. 10 years ago, I thought it was late. And, I just kept grinding. And little by little, took a while to get going, but I just kept grinding. Like, okay, I could start making a little bit of money. I think I might be able to do this full time. Okay, great. I could let go of that other job that I was not happy about. And I kept going. And now it's turned into what it's turned into. But it wasn't overnight. And that's what people have to understand.
Well, nothing is. I mean, there have been people like in the tech industry, certainly the innovations that have done that, have invented something.
Yeah, but how long did it take them to get to that point?
Yeah, but they've had all of those. It's kind of like Edison had probably millions of inventions. We only heard about the ones that were successful. So it's to your point that, to my work, my husband kept saying, you're going to be a 50-year phenom. Overnight success. And to your point, too, you as well. I mean, you just keep on keeping on. And every time that door shuts or every time something happens and you feel a step back, it's feedback. Oh, maybe I'll go over here. I'll take another direction in the same direction, but maybe another road. It's not that you failed. It's just giving you information in which you can keep going and making it better.
It's kind of like when you have a lot of success when you're early on, it's very difficult to kind of deal with that. But as you get older and you have success, you've got so much scar tissue. You have, like you were saying, you're like, oh, that's feedback. You and I both have a lot of feedback on us.
Yeah.
And it's made us so much more powerful, more strong in our lives. So we can just keep going. And now we have the experience. You're like, oh, there's a wall. Well, just go around that. Or I'll dig underneath it. I'll pull a ladder on.
I can't tell you the number of people, and I mentor a number of people, have a program to mentor people that are opening up to channeling or their psychic ability or the healing ability and so forth. And that I can share some of my stories and assist them maybe to avoid some of the things by just sharing with them how I navigated through some of those difficult areas or how it felt. Even letting people know it's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay.
It's part of the process.
Yeah. And so that's a beautiful thing too, is assisting others coming along.
I don't know about you, but my greatest lessons have been through my greatest failures. You have to fail in order to learn. You don't learn from winning.
What's that saying? Failing forward.
Absolutely. If you don't fail or don't have resistance or don't have that feedback, you really can't grow. You need something pushing against you for you to come out. So a seed in the ground has to fight its way through the soil to get to the sunlight. And then it just keeps fighting, and then it just puts its roots in to grab as much water as it can. And that's struggle. That is part of the process. The birthing process, as we've been talked about, is a struggle. I haven't had it, but I've seen. I can only imagine how difficult it is to be able to birth out something like that. So people have to understand that struggle is not always a negative thing. We've gone through struggle. We all have gone through struggle.
Theo uses the analogy of the butterfly coming out of the cocoon.
How difficult is that?
And it looks like a huge struggle. But if we were to take that chrysalis and open it for them, they die because they need that to build the musculature to fly. But to your part about birth, it looks like the person being killed, but it looks like the butterfly is just struggling and needs help. No, it's a necessary process of birth.
So we're going through this time is our crystallization part. I forgot the exact term you said, for the butterfly to go through. We're in the cocoon right now, and we look like we're struggling. And we are in many areas of this world that we're having a lot of struggle. A lot of people out there struggling. But it is part of the process. I always tell people, like, during the Great Depression, greatest companies and fortunes were ever created down there. Same thing happened in 2008. Same thing happened through the pandemic. When there's when there's such a event that happens that changes the world, there's both sides of that coin. People who are going to thrive and people who are going to struggle. It's your choice in many ways how you deal with it.
Struggle is optional.
That's a T-shirt.
Yeah.
And I love what you said in regards to this shift that we're going through in consciousness, because there's been so much talk of this. The great shift is upon us, and the world is, this consciousness is rising, and the new humanity is going to be created, and all of this stuff. But I think a lot of people are still waiting for an exterior event. Someone coming back. I'm not going to say who. Or the aliens landing, or a meteor that lands and doesn't destroy us all, but something pops out of it, or whatever that thing is. There's an external event, some spiritual thing, or whatever. Atlantis is real, whatever it is, that's going to change the world. But I love what you said, that this change is one at a time internally, and that's what does the shift. Because if you change and I change, we affect everyone we touch. That's how we change the world, is by changing ourselves. I think there was a guy named Jesus, I think, spoke about something like that back in the day, too.
Well, you spoke of the second coming. It's us.
Right.
We are it. And that's what the fifth dimension energy is about, is that frequency, vibrational change in the environment all around us to a much more refined way of being as humans. It's no longer that third dimensional reality with all its structure. Now it's broader, more expanded, and we have access to all of the multidimensionalities that are about the earth plane. And, Theo says, this is one choice. Earth is one choice. There's billions of choices for a soul to have an experience. There's maybe 40 billion planets in our universe.
Yeah, our galaxy, I think.
Our galaxy,
our galaxy alone. There's how many galaxies in the universe?
Yeah.
Trillions. It's endless.
And we can't imagine.
Right.
Unless we look at those pictures from space.
Or with the new telescopes, you're like, okay.
You can see how vast it is.
It just keeps going and going.
Yeah.
And going.
They even say, people ask about extraterrestrials. And they said, and are they here? Yes. Could you imagine you are one? They'll say, and it's like, you could have been one. You've just chosen Earth this time.
You could have been one before in another.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a lot, not even a woo-woo thing, on a logical standpoint. There's a lot of space out there. If we're the only ones, man, it's a waste of space, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a big, big waste of space if we're the only ones. It's really interesting. Can you give people some advice who are going through struggles right now, who are, obviously there's been a lot of war, there's been a lot of financial struggles, there's obviously things that are happening, natural disasters around the world, our country and everything. It's really easy for us to sit here and go, struggle's an option until your house burns down or until a hurricane knocks it out. I lived in Florida. I got hit. My house was almost gone. I lost half my roof once. And, I've gone through those kind of things. And then you really feel powerless because it's nature. So what advice would you have for someone who's going through that right now and how they can kind of transcend it?
Well, I know when I've been in crisis in my life, and I've been in challenging times. And, in those times, there were moments when why is this happening to me?
Why me?
Happening to me. Mm-hmm. When I realized it was happening for me, Theo said, you're going to learn from this. Because I would say, people, you have archangels talking through you. Why? And I go, hey. And they told me, I said, this is to be experienced, and you're going to learn these things from it, which were true. Changed my perception. I thought, okay, if my soul wants me to learn from this particular lesson, I'm going to squeeze everything I can out of this moment to get what I'm supposed to get from it.
No matter how painful.
No matter how painful. Just step in and embrace it. Just go for it. And you know what happened? It got easier instead of harder. Why it was so hard, was my resistance to it. The struggle is just resistance. When you embrace it and say, what is the gift and blessing in this? What's the highest good in this?
Yeah.
Then it starts showing up. Then it's, to your point earlier, some of your greatest lessons. Me too. My greatest shifts in my awareness came from those moments.
When you're in it, it's
tough.
So difficult. When you lost that person, you had a breakup, you lost your job, get kicked out of the house, 1,000 different traumas, 1,000 different things. When you're in it, it takes a very strong will to do what you just said. When you're really in it, I get it. And even nowadays, when certain things happen, I'm like, okay, I'm still human. It's still, that reactive thing comes out. But I've noticed it shortens. Before I would live in that space for months. Now it's hours, maybe, sometimes even minutes, where it would be like, okay, what's happening for me? Okay, let's see what this is. What's the purpose of this? And even certain struggles we had, personally last year, I'm like, okay. And I look back now, I'm like, okay, well, if I wouldn't have had that, this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have gone down this path if this wouldn't have happened. If this would have kept going the way it was, I wouldn't have even thought about doing anything else. But now because of that, this was like, oh, okay. And now I'm like, oh, thank you for that struggle. Thank you for that, those experiences. Because without those, we wouldn't be where we are today, and so on.
Right.
Yeah. But it's not easy when you're when you're in the middle of the storm. It's tough, man. It is tough.
No, but it's, life is happening through us, as Theo says, through us, for us, as us. And it always wants more life lived through us and for us. So if we have that perception that this is happening for me, not to me, we step out of being victimized by life.
It gives you the power again. It gives you the power again.
And you know what it taught me too? If I stayed stuck in the story of being victimized by whatever it was, I was stuck. I couldn't come up with any other ideas. So when I could step out of that box, then all kinds of creative ideas started flowing. And I'm sure you've had that experience too, where you're not just focused on that one thing. And then our minds can go to solution mode rather than this other place where it's stuck.
Not helpful. No. Not a helpful place. Well, speaking of Theo, let's bring Theo in. I have some questions for him. And can you explain to people what your process is when you channel him?
Yes. What I do is I'll close my eyes. I take a couple of deep breaths. That allows me to get centered in myself. I invite them to come in. I tell them how grateful I am for their presence. And then they come on the right side of my body, take it over and begin to speak. And for those who haven't heard them before, it's a bit of a different tone. It's a little more masculine and has a little bit of an accent, I'm told. So.
Mm-hmm. It does, yes.
Yeah, so that's how it happens. And it looks easy, but I've had, over 5 decades of practice.
And we don't have to worry about Zoom going out this time. So
I know. That's great. It is the beginning, is it not?
It is. Thank you so much for being here, Theo.
We are appreciative of the opportunity to serve. You may ask?
Yes, I'd love to ask you what you believe humanity's journey is going to be like over these next decade or so, and how can souls that are in this journey for the next decade or two deal with whatever tragedies or struggles or negative things that might seem to be going on around them, how they can transcend that to move forward in a positive way.
So no, on the planet Earth, there's always natural things that do happen that will continue, mm-hmm. which you'll be made aware of instantaneously, as has been recent. Mm-hmm. And that continues. But to hold the thought that that is a natural event, which will span new ways of being on the planet where these events happen. New buildings of structures that are resistant to events such as fire, hurricane, tornado. And to be aware, to be prepared for such a thing to occur. And know if it is in an area of where you live, there was a learning to be experienced if you were there. But oftentimes it could happen there and you're on vacation. It's not meant for you. So each individual recognizing the gifts and blessings, and we know that's difficult in those times, mm-hmm. but the gifts and blessings that one receives from such an event. However, there are many changes in the world today that we've been speaking about for many years. That is the transformation of consciousness that is now changing your world in the sense of human species living on this planet as one body, you might say, not delineated from country to state, but as one. What we mean by this, it is a global community, a common unity of species. And there comes a consciousness with that oneness to be of assistance to each other and creative together. And so the ones feeling separate now will see that connectivity, not only technologically, but energetically, which is a gift you'll have in that knowing that there's not separateness between you. The structures of how one does life is changing as well. There's a global economic structure, there's global business structure, there's been control by certain individuals of these things, but the people will make the changes within that as well. There will not be that hierarchy as has been in the past because of this new dimensional awareness and the ability of each to be utilizing their own brilliance and mastery and genius in their lives to bring about a better world. collectively, collaboratively with each other.
Is that what we're going to be doing moving forward? Is the hierarchies that you were talking about have been in place for centuries, sometimes thousands of years even, but they seem to be breaking down.
Yes.
And we are starting to empower ourselves more and more, but it is a struggle, breaking through that paradigm, that belief systems that we've been programmed with. But it's yelling so much from inside of our soul that people are now can't ignore it. They just can't ignore it. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes. And that's why we brought forward the integrative process, that individuals can break through those generational patternings that have been passed along for thousands of years. They don't work anymore. And those that are here now and coming upon this planet embodied are the change makers of that in consciousness. The new way showers of a way to be in human existence collaborative, because you are a collaborative species, not competitive, truly. If the competition may be in enjoyment, but to have things done, the collaborations are more exhilarating, because each person has an element that brings to fruition the desired outcome, that one person can't do it all by themselves.
Are the old systems and these people that you were speaking of that have held the reins of power for so long, generational power, they seem to be fighting to hold on to power more and more.
Yes.
Is that going to continue?
The fight?
Mm-hmm.
For a bit of time. Yes. But it's becoming less and less, because the general populace is learning how to become more powerful in those realms of what has given power to the others, money.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
Money has no power in and of itself. It's what the mind gives it, the individual gives it, yes? It's just an exchange for goods and services.
Mm-hmm.
And that the way that exchange is happening is changing dramatically now, isn't it? Because of your technology.
Hmm.
And so when one is well versed with technology and has the ability to be creative, all can have what is called wealth. And in the integrative process that we discussed, an understanding psychologically, emotionally, and physically that one is worthy of it.
I wanted to ask you a question about, since we are on the topic of money, there seems to be this almost instinctual reverence for gold, the actual metal. Unlike any of the other metals or anything else, no matter where you are in the world, it has value. Is that something on a spiritual standpoint? Is that something on a DNA standpoint? That we all, I mean, you can go anywhere on the planet and you have a piece of gold, it's not thrown away. It's not discarded. It is valued up to this moment. And it's been throughout known history that gold has had that kind of power. What is the origin of that understanding of, because it's a metal like anything else, has some properties.
It's a mineral.
A mineral, yeah, exactly. So it's a mineral that, like a rock or, there's many other minerals on the periodic table. So why gold is so instinctual like that?
It's the color, isn't it?
Okay.
It's shiny.
Sure.
And people resonate to that. But gold, all of the minerals are part of you.
Right.
Your body would not function without gold in it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a feeling to it. People have a feeling about it. It's vibration, but it's also your physicality is attracted to the gold.
Mm. That's why. And the other precious metals as well, but gold has a very special place.
Yes.
I've always wanted to ask you this. I think you're the person or the group to ask, what is the purpose of angels in the universe?
We're overseers, us particularly, the archangelic beings, are, let us say, supervisory over the angelic legions, of which there's billions of angels. Mm-hmm. But here's teachers, mentors, guides, protectors, when allowed, and in agreement to the souls embodied.
Can you explain to the audience who and what the Ascended Masters are and what their purpose is for humanity?
Ascended Masters are master beings, having been human, that have done their work and recognized the unique essence, the magnificence of their souls, and the capabilities of that, and have been teachers, mentors in shifting consciousness with love.
And what is their purpose for us? What are they doing for us behind the scenes?
They're assisting this new way of consciousness to come to fruition. As teachers, they were teaching it early, but continue to teach and assist.
Are there any walking masters now who are alive, incarnated?
There are.
Doing the work as well. So let me ask you, what is the nature of consciousness and how does it relate to the divine?
It's connected to divinity. Consciousness is how one works in the world in this human body. Mm-hmm. It has to do with the mind, but it also has to do with one's values. Mm-hmm. It has to do with spirit, it has to do with the soul, and what is important.
How do you view the concept of free will and its relationship to destiny, or soul blueprint, or soul plan that we have?
One could say they're one and the same, because the soul does have an idea of what it wants to do and be to incarnate into a physical structure. Mm-hmm. And so one could say that blueprint that the soul has to achieve in a lifetime could be what you could call destiny.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you, when you started to work with Sheila over 5 decades ago, the concept of channeling was still pretty underground. There was Edgar Casey, obviously, and the Seth materials, and a few others, but it was not very well known. Why is there so many people now coming out as channelers and channeling information in a very public way, where it was very taboo before, and also just not as many that we knew of, at least?
That's true. That's the evolution of consciousness we're speaking about, because each and every one of you is a channel.
Can you explain?
In different ways. You are a channel. Okay. In the sense of your creative energy. Are you not? Your soul's path, as all are. Musicians are channels of the music. Composers are channels of the notes. Writers are channels of the word. Artists, painters are channels of the brush to bring forth image. So each in their own way channels their soul's energy for the life they are living.
But Theo, let me ask you though, if I've always wanted to know this as an artist myself and doing things, are we just vessels for the other side to bring in information, bring in art, bring in knowledge, or is it being filtered through us, or are we part of the process in actually creating something new? I've always wondered how you mix those two.
It's all of the same.
Can you explain?
For each and every one of you is an individual frequency vibration that is a constant in this life itself, that is a creative force. So it's in concert, let's say, with all others, that are grasping possibilities or visions of what can be and bringing that forth.
Let me ask you, Theo, I've heard of this concept that there is no past, there is no future, that all our lives are happening at the same time. Can you explain that to us in a way that our little brains can understand?
We cannot. We could try.
Okay.
But it's just a multi-dimensional verse. There's 12 dimensions about the earth. Within that, there are things that are happening on a soul level that are in concert with everything else, with all those dimensions. And so that's the concept of everything happening at once, which it is. We cannot explain it to you because it's energy. It's energy and frequencies, which all things are. Mm-hmm. And so in the fifth dimension of living in that, in your physicality now, those veils between those multi-dimensions are much thinner now, where there is a greater ability to know the past, present, and future.
So what is, can you explain to me what the Mandela effect is? It seems to be kind of going to different timelines and seeing different outcomes and things like that. Can you explain that a little bit?
We can explain it like a prophetic dream.
Okay.
When one has lucid dreaming or prophetic dreams, one is seeing the future, yes? Mm-hmm. That's the blending through that we're speaking about. But then one becomes aware that they are the creator of that future and can change the outcome by knowing how they will react when the circumstance occurs. Do you see? Mm-hmm. So prophetic dreams allows you a glimpse into one outcome that can be changed by a choice by you, if you so doing. Not just to be an observer of something you observed before, but being actively involved in the outcome. For an example, if you didn't like what you were being shown, how would you react to it? You could react differently in the event that changes the outcome.
So can you explain to me timelines? Because there's been a lot of talks about timelines, a lot of talks about the multiverse. It has become part of the zeitgeist when it was something very, very closeted back in the day. Timelines seem to, my understanding of it, and please tell me if I'm right or wrong, is every decision we make, major decision we make, spawns off a new timeline. So there's another version of this conversation happening right now, and there might be endless amounts of versions of this conversation happening, and they're all playing out their way. So my soul is not just experiencing this incarnation, it's experiencing endless or countless other lifetimes in this character of Alex, and your character of Sheila is playing out all possibilities within this character's realm. Does that make any sense, or am I completely off?
It does make sense, yes.
So it is something so that's true as far as timelines are concerned. Is that or can you explain it better than I can?
Yes, but then we would ask, what changes?
In what way?
Just knowing that that's a possibility. Does it change what you do? No.
No, really, no.
But it allows for a curiosity, if you would, a curiosity about it that can keep the mind focused on that and not about the now of what the experience is. It's another way for some to avoid the present.
It's a trap almost, if you will.
Yes.
It can become a trap because you focus so much on that you're not living in the now.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about the power of living in the now?
It's awareness.
Okay.
If you're too far into the past or even thinking about the future, you're not focused on this present moment and gaining all that can be gained from it. For an example, how many meals have you eaten that you've never tasted?
Too many to count.
That's a very simple example, but it's true. That there are many ways of distracting one's awareness away from life, and often are when it's uncomfortable.
It seems like our current systems are built in distraction. All of our social media is a distraction. Yes. Entertainment's a distraction. There's 1,000 things that are vying for our attention. But what you're saying is we need to focus on the now and be conscious of the moment that you're in to enjoy it.
Yes.
Where do you, we've been speaking a little bit about the shift in consciousness and the struggles that the birthing process of that it will be a little bit bumpy, a little bit traumatic for humanity as a general statement as we move forward. How many years do we have to look forward to? How long is this birthing process going to take, give or take? Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 100 years?
It may take a moment for some. It may take the rest of their lifetime.
But that's on an individual standpoint. I'm talking about as a collective.
As a collective, the changes are coming now within the next 10 years specifically, but 5.
So the rest of this decade, essentially.
Yes.
And that's going to be I've heard that before, that at the 2030 stage, something else will start. It's not going to be over completely, but within the next 100 years, we'll be a completely different species by the end of it.
And look what has happened in the last 100 years.
My God.
Or 200.
It's why
dramatically.
Why are things feeling so sped up now? It's insane how fast time is going.
That's because there's no time. Mm-hmm. And it's a feeling, actually, and that you're ready for these changes. Note, as we said, the last 200 years, last 100 years, how life has changed for humanity on this planet. You have your technology that dramatically changed human existence.
And still is changing.
And will continue. Those innovations are daily now, because those coming on the planet now are ready to be those change agents. They have the minds and capacity to envision and create and bring forth what is to be next.
What is humanity's greatest challenge moving forward in this shift in consciousness?
Loving themselves.
That simple.
It sounds simple, hard to do. Because it's letting go of beliefs about you that are simply untrue, that have been carried along for centuries.
It seems like it's been, this kind of lie has been propagated to us again and again and again, generationally. Because when you have a child loves itself until it's been told not to love itself, or that there's something wrong with it. And then that continues to grow into adulthood. And we have to find our way back to that childlike place. Is that correct?
Yes. And so often there's been much judgment about how a child expresses itself on the planet. And so there have been labels given children to define who they are. Mm-hmm. We would say that's inappropriate. Mm-hmm. It's the judgments you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And most of those come in wanting to control behaviors that are uncomfortable for adults.
Is there a reason why there seems to be such an uptick, at least a feeling of uptick with children with special needs, children on the spectrum, coming into this world? It seems to be, it used to be one out of, thousands, and now it's one out of 48 or 100 or something like that have special needs or are on the spectrum. And they're generally, from what I've seen, some of the most loving souls on the planet.
Some are very high functioning, high intelligence, most are. Mm-hmm. And so this has been for some time, these souls coming forward to birth this new world. But there has been this identification and labeling that has occurred. And it's just a shift of awareness and the ability within them and their sensitivity to the environment is very great because of their mind functionality, their ability to function at a higher frequency.
What part or what role will AI play in our spiritual evolution as we continue to move forward, since it's becoming so prevalent in our society?
It's a useful tool, just like the internet has been a useful tool. Does it have some negativity to it? Of course, everything has, yes? So it's a matter of using it in its proper way, and it's only as good as what you give it.
With that said, so many people are fearful of the negative aspects of AI or of technology in general. I am in the school of thought that we have guardrails on humanity, and we have people like, or groups of archangels and other beings who are watching over us and will not allow us to go too far off the reservation where we will destroy each other or this experiment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So is that a form of solace that people can take? That there is someone watching over us.
That, and don't give your power away.
Please elaborate.
Technology is here as a service. All of it. AI, your computer, your tablet, your phone. People get upset about this technology. You're the user. Yes? And discernment is important. Yes? Again, it's an inside-out job, not an outside-in. You have the power to turn it on and off and to use it in the ways you use it. It's not, you're not being told how to use it, are you?
My example has always been that we've had the capability of destroying this planet and everything on it since World War II.
Yes.
And yet, we haven't, though we came close a bunch of times. That tells me that someone, something, some group, something is watching over us, because, to be honest with you, we should have blown ourselves up so many times over the years. But something's always stopped it. So that's what gives me peace, knowing that there's some guardrails for humanity.
There is. And by the people.
What do you mean?
By the people of the world. Your species. There's the ones that have created this possibility. Yes. They're the ones that will not allow it to happen. And what we're saying now, the political structures will change dramatically in this time. And it's by the people. You're seeing this unrest or upheaval throughout the world politically, not just in the country where you live. And though it seems negative at this time, it's not. It's the birthing process. And the people will demand the structures. And that will give you solace as well.
Theo, do you have any final messages for humanity?
Yes, when you love yourselves enough, everything changes. We are complete for this moment.
Thank you.
God's love unto you.
Thank you.
Good day.
And she's back. How are you doing?
I'm good.
How do you feel?
I'm good. I feel good.
You feel good?
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, it's just energetic. It energizes you, right? It doesn't wipe you.
It does. Like, at the end of the day, if I've been doing a lot of work teaching and working with individuals, I'm tired like anybody else at the end of the day.
Physically, just as a general statement.
But I ask Theo to give me and balance my energy every time I invite them to come into my body, and they do.
They keep you going.
Yeah, they keep me going.
That was a beautiful session.
Oh, good.
I love Theo. Yeah, you don't remember much, right?
If we talk about it, it's kind of like jaws
it's dreamlike almost. It's trying to remember a dream.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
No, that was a beautiful conversation. We went on a bunch of different places, and they brought up some stuff, and it was just, I love Theo. I've always loved Theo since we met the first time. I love their energy, and I love the messages that they're putting in. Now, but before we go, I wanted to talk about your book, The Art of Relationship, Discovering the Magic of Unconditional Love, that you've written with your amazing husband, Marcus.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what this is and how important it is right now?
A few years ago, we asked Theo, what's the most important thing we can do now? And they said relationships, because everything is relationship-based. And the art of relationship is, yes, about primary love, but it's about every other relationship in our lifetime. But most importantly, right in the beginning, it's about the soul integration process, about how to love ourselves and how to get to that point of releasing the old belief systems that have limited us. And the art of relationship is a book, but it's a tremendous program that we've created and will be launching here in a few months to the general public. We have to a small group of people to be able to make it its best self. And it's a book, it's an audio book, it's video, it's meditations. I don't know if you're familiar with Barry Goldstein. He
sounds familiar.
We collaborated, Theo and Barry collaborated on 12 meditations that go along with each chapter of the books that can be used independently as well. But it's a huge program that we'll have on our website and that we'll launch, and you'll know more about it. But the art of relationship touches everything in our lives, as I said, and gives us really useful tools for our relationships with our family, with our people we work with ourselves predominantly, primary partners. And the last chapter is called The End of Life, how to work with leaving this incarnation and what's that like as we leave our families.
Can you give us a tool that's in the book about how to better have a relationship with ourselves, which I think is probably arguably the most important relationship that we have, is to be with ourselves first. Because I've said this before, if we had people in our lives who treated us the way we treat ourselves, we would run 1,000 miles away, because we're the worst with ourselves.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And it sounds redundant, but the soul integration process that Theo's brought to us and has taught us how to get in touch with those fragmented aspects of our soul that are acting on those beliefs that have been created inside of us that are not untrue. All the limiting beliefs, all the not enoughnesses, the unworthy part of ourselves, where it began, and how to love those little parts of ourselves forward to the present, because it's not our adult part of ourselves that's reactive emotionally to life. It's part of these, Theo calls them the little orphans, part of these fragmented aspects that are reactive to any situation and circumstance from the belief that is held of one's not being lovable, worthy, pretty, handsome, the not enoughnesses, not worthy. And when that occurs, the adult loves this part of self forward to the present. And where it's different, as we spoke of before, to the psychological models of inner child work and so forth, is it goes into our multidimensionality. Some of the things we've carried forward from other times and experiences that have influence as well.
If there was one thing that one piece of advice that you can give somebody right now to have a better relationship with themselves, what would it be?
integrate.
What does that mean exactly?
That's a soul integration. It's being aware where those beliefs began, changing your perception.
So doing the work of going like...
The inner work.
I have a bad relationship with money because I was told throughout my life, I'm not saying me, but as a general statement, that money is very difficult. Money is the root of all evil. And because of these belief systems in my head, I've had struggles with money my entire life. Is that something that you're telling?
Absolutely.
And you have to
That's a big one.
That's a huge one.
Lack, a feeling of lack, and not being worthy of it. And some of it's a reverse snobbery. People with money are bad and people without are good. Right. You know, they've been taught in certain areas that it's the root of all evil. You know, all of those old ways of controlling people. And that, you know, it's where did those beliefs come from? And are they true? Are they your own? Where did they come from? And that's where you transmute it.
Isn't it? I wonder that who was the group that said money is the root of all evil? I have to believe that they probably had some money.
They did.
The institutions, you know. Like,
the institutions.
You know, the institution, yeah, Vatican's doing okay. But like, you know, everyone is the root of all evil. Ignore the golden walls that we have.
And give us all of what you have.
And give us all your money. We can actually, was it the 11th century? Like, you're struggling, we can, you pay us, we'll get you into heaven. There was a pope that did that. I can't believe that.
Yeah, yeah.
These kind of, so you start looking into these.
But look systems. At all those kind of hierarchical structures.
Oh, yeah.
Do that very same thing.
Oh, yeah. Not just religion. All of them.
Look at insurance, for instance.
Insurance, pharmaceuticals, health, education, money.
And there's some things that we do need in a structured way to live comfortably.
Of course.
But it's our choice. You know, we need to be the one in charge. And we've given our power away for centuries.
But I think that's changing, has changed for quite some time now. The power has
That's why we're seeing all this upheaval. And that's why the insistence on keeping the people down, keeping the people
ignorant,
but also divided.
Well, of course, we're more polarized now than we've ever been before. I mean, well, I'm not sure ever before, but we definitely
in my lifetime.
In my lifetime as well. I mean, you can go back to the Civil War, but that was a divided time as well. But I think now it's like you can't even have a conversation with it. Like there was that,
and that's been a psychological manipulation.
Isn't it interesting at Jimmy Carter's funeral that Trump and Obama were next to each other and they were laughing and sharing a joke or something like that. And that image, that video went around the world and people were up in arms on both sides. Like, how dare you talk to that person? How can they be having a good time? And this is like it was fascinating to see that. I was like, these are two human beings who might have different ideologies. But when has someone said that we can't think different things and still coexist?
That's the division we're talking about.
Right.
The people are going, they shouldn't talk to each other because we've been divided like that. We should be able to talk to each other and have differences of opinion. That's how we grow.
That's how we've always grown.
And to say one's greater than the other, it's not. No. It's not. They're just different, to your point.
Right.
And we need a little more of that, quite frankly.
I mean, it's like, you know, I could argue like, you know, I'm not a suit person. That jacket is the wrong way. Hoodies are the only way to go. That's it. If you don't wear a hoodie, you're obviously the devil.
I know.
That's how I'm making a point. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. These belief systems that we create for ourselves, these structures that we create for ourselves.
Yeah.
That, you know, you start looking, only when you start to pull back from it and start like to disconnect from the media, disconnect from things that are not positive or not helping you along the way, you start to look at things differently.
Well, isn't that the critical thinking we're talking about? Yeah. Of, you know, is this true? Is it true for me? I mean, you know, somebody has their own truth also, and we should celebrate that. because we are individuals, but we're more alike than we are not. We all want the same thing out of life. We want to have an abundant life. We want to have love. We want to have joy. We want to do something that's significant and productive and has impact. All of us want that. A life well lived, as Theo would say.
But there's been so much demonization of the other, with this lie that we're not all connected. Let's just get out of the spiritual stuff for a second. We're all on this planet, hurtling through the universe in this little pearl of a planet that we have.
Yeah.
We're all on the same ship, and it's like if we were all on a giant boat and arguing about which side's better, and you can't get into my cabin because my cabin's much better than your cabin over there, and here's the line, and if you look from space, there is no country lines.
That's what Theo says.
There's no borders.
But they also said, didn't the pandemic prove we're not separate?
I mean, it shut the entire planet down.
It did, and it affected the entire species.
And not only our species, it affected every species. When I saw dolphins in Venice, in Venice, Italy, coming back because there were no boats, there was no pollution, there was no...
I know.
It was so quick, too.
Exactly. Look how quickly the planet cleaned up.
Oh, I mean, it was like within a few weeks of non-human or very minimal human movement. It was pretty fascinating.
But, like Theo will say, the virus didn't discriminate.
It didn't care.
It had one host, and it was the human body. And it didn't care what color your skin was, what language you spoke, So that's the oneness. They said, didn't you learn anything from that?
But then we went back to our patterns
again. Separateness.
Yeah, our separateness and our patterns. There's so much demonization of the other side on political standpoints, on racial standpoints, on countries, and all this kind of stuff.
And it's all based in fear that's been propagated.
Right. It's always about fear. But if we look at history, if you do some critical thinking, look at history, some of these wars that happened, I mean, World War II, the demonization of what happened there. And,
right now.
Yeah. And now it's happening around the world. Again, these ancient karmic things that are happening in the Middle East and in the Ukraine and all these other places around the world. It's fascinating to watch. Sheila, I have hope. I do truly have hope.
I do too. I'm optimistic.
I have hope that we're changing. I think these kind of conversations getting out there, being seen by the amount of people that are seeing them, I think has a ripple effect around the world.
Well, and Alex, what you're doing is great service, bringing these messages out to the world. But look how many people are interested now. People want it as well, and they just want to know how. How can I do this? And so hopefully we'll bring the how so that all can work within the structure of the new world we're birthing.
Now, Sheila, I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests. You've answered some of these before, so let's see what the answers are this time.
Okay.
What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
Having all the pillars of life percolating perfectly, meaning good health, passionate about the work I do, my vocation, money, time, freedom.
Yes.
Just all of those. My spirituality is a very strong pillar in my life, and my family, and my relationships. So all of that working in harmony and balance is a life well lived to me.
If you had a chance to go back in time and speak to little Sheila, what advice would you give her?
Can you believe where we are today?
Well, she wouldn't know that. You'd have to tell her about what's going on.
Well, no, she's been living it with me.
That's true. Fair enough. How do you define God or source?
Oh, gosh, love. Pure love.
What is love?
It's not a feeling. It's a state of being.
a frequency, if you will?
Probably best state of frequency vibration. But it's also peace. We could put words of peace, joy, being comfortable in our own skin.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
Love.
And where can we find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing in the world and pick up a copy of The Art of Relationship?
At our website. It's called asktheo.com. And if people put in their email address, they'll get a guided meditation between Theo and as a gift for just signing up to our mailing list. But we have lots of mentoring programs. We have 3 books, Art of Relationship, but Soul Truth in the 5th dimension, and lots of opportunities to work with Theo.
And do you have any parting messages for the audience?
Just I'm glad you're listening, and know that we're all here to make the changes necessary to have a life well lived, each and every one of us.
Sheila, it has been such a pleasure and honor having you in the studio and having Theo in the studio, and I appreciate you and everything you're doing to help awaken this planet, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Great to be here.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.